So, this is part two of our reading. And the last, so, so now we on relationships. So, the last two chapters, it taught us how to go through challenges with some of the problems that the character has gone through. So, let's see what this is. So, this is relationships, connecting people who matter. So it says relationships are connections with other people based on sharing, mutual respect, and openness. The opposite of building relationships is cutting yourself off from others, protecting yourself by hiding beneath a false front, or violating other people only for what they can do for you. Relationships are hard because you must give of yourself as well as take. Relationships requires you to take risk and trust others. Relationships give you understanding, friendship, and sometimes even love. So this is a picture of people. So now what we're doing today is relationships. So even though relationships are not easy to get along, but we can still get into a relationship even though we don't always get along. So let's see what this is. So this is relationships are third resilience, are close and fulfilling ties to people who matter. Relationships don't just happen, they deepen slowly over time. To form a relationship, you have to balance giving and taking, helping and being helped. You have to have as much regards for someone else's well-being as for your own. You risk the possibility of being rejected. You let another person see your weaknesses and know your private feelings. Relationships are resilience because they help you connect with others who value you. Relationships provide a sense of belongings, opportunities to express yourself, and support when you need it. In a strong relationship, your friend's face is a mirror where you can see yourself as lovable, capable, and worthy, rather than alone and unnoticed. The stories in this section are by teens who are working hard to relate to people who matter, other teens, family members, other adults. You see them taking risks to form lasting relationships. They've learned that when you have deep connections with people who know and value you, it's easier to meet challenges and solve problems, which we're going to learn all about that in this chapter. So let's turn the page and see. So, All Talk and No Action by Elizabeth Thompson. Have you ever spent hours and hours every night talking on the phone with someone? Wait a minute. What about with someone you've never met? Well, it's been more than a year since I started talking on the phone with my friend Stormy. Even though, even though he only lives about 15 minutes away, we've never met. I don't know what he looks like, but we know each other pretty well in other ways. We help solve each other's problems by talking through them. It all started one Tuesday night with the phone ring, and I picked up. Hello, I said. Yes. May I speak to Elizabeth, please? A deep voice replied. Speaking, I said, wondering who in the world is this was. Oh, I said, wondering who in the world this was. I knew it wasn't my boyfriend, and I wasn't in the mood for pranks. How you doing? He asked. I'm fine. Who are you? I replied. You don't know me, but I got your number from my cousin Sean, who's afraid to call you. Sean? I don't know a Sean. Wait a minute. I know a Sean that's been harassing me for months. I don't like that ugly fool. How many times do I have to let that boy know I don't like him? I said loudly into the receiver. And how did he get my number? You gave it to him at the parade. The boy on the phone told me. Oh yeah, that's Sean, I said with relief. I knew another Sean. I knew another Sean. How could I forget? I didn't give him my number. I didn't give him my phone number, but my cousin was with me at the parade, and she loves giving my digits out to cuties. So what's up? How you doing? The boy on the phone asks again. I'm chillin'. Sorry for not believing you. What's your name? The fellas call me Sin, and the ladies call me Divine, he said smoothly. Great. Another player that got my number, I said to myself. But, as it turned out, he wasn't a player. And we kept talking and talking for months, just by talking on the phone. We became close friends. That was strange because I don't have any close friends who are boys except for my boyfriend. It seems like boys always want to take the relationship to a higher level, which I never want. But since I've never met Stormy, that's what I call him. That's not an issue. Stormy and I talked on the phone for hours, almost every night. Now you must be wondering, what in the world could two people who have never met have to talk about? Everything. We talk about things as stupid as our favorite cartoons and as important as dating and friendship. And oh yeah, what we both look like. We feel comfortable talking to each other. We help each other solve problems. Late night, I used to listen to his problems with his girlfriend, and at the end, I gave him advice. I gave him advice. They broke up. Stormy also gives me advice on situations with my boyfriend, like whether I should go to see him, go whether I should go see him or apologize when I do something wrong. I like talking to Stormy, especially because he helps me understand boys' point of view. Point of view, like what boys think when they see girls in a certain outfit, and why wave his hairstyle are so important to him. He tells me what makes boys jealous, what he expects from a girl in a relationship, and what he considers an ideal girl. So Stormy has heard a lot about my boyfriend, but I've never told my boyfriend anything about him. I won't mind telling my boyfriend about Stormy, but my boyfriend gets very jealous even though he never admits it over stupid. He never admits it over stupid stuff. He will assume that Stormy and I are having an affair, and I don't feel like dealing with his false accusation or execution. So now Elizabeth is having a boyfriend named Stormy. So they talk for hours every night when they're on the phone. So let's see. So he so let's see. So he would also be jealous because even though I've been dating him for 4 years, and there are things I've spoken to Stormy about that I've never mentioned to my boyfriend, and vice versa. Stormy and my boyfriend are totally different when it comes to talking or expressing feelings, and they're important to me in different ways. I like the way Stormy can talk about anything and how he gets so involved when I speak to him. He always wants to know more and asks how and why and likes to give his point of view at the end. Sometimes I don't like his opinions. For instance, he calls girls he doesn't like chicken heads, but I do like that he responds. It makes me want to talk more. My boyfriend is not as good at having conversations. He just listens and then he has nothing to say, but I don't know what to tell you. I can't call it. That makes me feel that makes me feel stupid. Like I just wasted my time saying something that is saying something he didn't want to hear. And if I'm sad or I tell him really deep and painful, my boyfriend won't show me any sympathy because he doesn't know how to respond. He'll just bite his balloon. He'll just bite his bottom lip and have puppy dog eyes for a while. Then all of a sudden, he'll start to play fight with me or try to make me laugh. This is the way he hides his emotions. He hates to see me sad and he hates to talk about problems. Not just mine, but his too. He laughs everything off, but I like that too because I'll have fun with him. My boyfriend and Stormy make me see that there's no boy in this world who has every detail I want. Hours on the phone with Stormy turn into days, and days turn into weeks. Liz, when am I going to meet you? Then weeks turned into months. Liz, when am I going to meet you? And we actually made plans to meet, but we never did. One time we were supposed to meet at the train station at 3:30. I came and he came. I don't know what happened. Actually, I'm kind of being around the bush when it comes to meeting Stormy because I'm afraid it might change our relationship. I'm a shy person, so talking on the phone is easy. But if I meet Stormy face to face, I think my whole phone personality would change. So, So I am going to meet Stormy one day. I don't know when, but soon. Before this year is over, probably. It's kind of weird having someone who is only a voice be one of my closest friends, a person I tell about important pieces of my life. If Stormy were standing next to me, I would not have a clue who he was, but the instant one word left his mouth, I would know. I always wonder what Stormy looks like. Sometimes when we talk, sometimes when we're talking, I imagine the different faces he might have. Mainly, I imagine he looks like Method Man. If he doesn't if he doesn't look like meth, it's an automatic attraction. But I hope when I meet him, I'm not too attracted to him. Because if I am, I would definitely be too shy to play around on a phone with him anymore. That's why I'm gonna want him to say a mystery to me. Boys are hard to have friendship with in person, and I don't want to ruin my relationship with one of the best friends I've got, even if he's only a voice for now. So, Elizabeth Thompson was 16 when she wrote this story. Is there a close friend in your life? Is there a close friend in your life who you never met or you've only seen once in a while? If so, what makes this person a good friend? What do you look for in for friendship? What makes you a good friend? What's hard about keeping friends? So, so the first question says, is there a is there a close friend in your life who you've never met or you've only seen once in a while? If so, what makes this person a good friend? So, or maybe to answer this, so even though we can see your friend outside of school and you hang out one weekend, or you can sit with your friends at lunch, maybe, or so. It says, what do you look for in friendship? What makes you a good friend, and what's hard about keeping friends? So what I look for friendship is they're nice, they're kind, they're smart, they're helpful. What makes you a good friend? What wait what makes them a good friend is they support each other, they helpful, they solve each other's problems, they support them about a way. So it says what's hard about keeping friends? Sometimes friends can't be in a good. Well, sometimes friend is not nice, and sometimes friends can be in a bad mood. So depending on how they feel, or sometimes a friend one day they'll be your friend, and one day they may not be your friend. They may not be your friend, and so now we're saying, so now this is why it's not easy to keep a friendship, because one day they say you're friends and then one day they not your friends, and this is all coming to a conclusion now that some friends don't even like that nowadays. So at least if we can keep a friendship for as long, then we so yeah. So now it says she is she is my sister, not foster. Most of my life I wished for a sister. I've always heard that having a sister wasn't a bowl of Cheerios, but I like to learn things the hard way. I've been in foster homes with other girls, both of them, both the younger, both older, both older and younger. But I didn't have much of a sisterly relationship with any of them. That changed when I moved into my present home. My new foster mother spoke highly of Sorrel, a foster child who who had once lived with her. She said she wanted Sorrel to come. She wanted Sorrel back. So I wasn't really surprised when I came home one Sunday and saw Sorrel's suitcase in the hallway. After, after a while, Sorrel came back. I continued to share a room with another foster girl, Erica. Sorrel shared a room with her foster mother's two biological kids. But things but things were not going well with Erica. So, okay, but things really not going well with Erica. But things really were not going well with Erica. So I wasn't surprised when she got kicked out. Soon enough, Sherelle was my new roommate. I was really, I was really cool about her moving in. Just, let's see, just as long as she stayed out of my way. Don't take this wrong, but I was used to having my own room in my previous foster home. I had my own room for 4 years. I never felt threatened by Sherelle. It just felt weird to share a room. After all, I had just gotten out of the bad roommate experience with Erica. The only thing I really envied Sherelle was for the respect of our foster mothers, biological kids gave her. They didn't have that respect for me. They still have no respect for me, but it's better than it used to be. I guess they have so much respect for her because they've known her longer. Since Sorrel had a job and went to school, we never really talked. We either didn't speak or if we did, we argued. We had a lot of disputes because we were two totally different people who never took the time to get to know each other. We basically live on a high and buy basis. Sometimes we had an actual conversation. We talk about basic stuff like what was for dinner or the weather, nothing personal. Despite our conversation, I still look I still look at her as just a roommate. Before I got to know Sherelle better, I thought she was too busy. I thought she was too bossy. The thing that bugged me the most was that she was always telling me to clean the room. I'm a clean person, but she's cleaner. Another thing that caused arguments is that there's no telling Sherelle no. One night during the summer, we had an argument because I did something she didn't like. Sherelle, my cousin, and I were watching television when Sherelle asked me to go get a glass of water for her. I didn't feel like going. So she asked my cousin. My cousin also said no. So Sherelle demanded that I go. So with an attitude, I went. The only reason I did was because it was late at night and I didn't want to hear her mouth. I came back with a half gallon bottle of water, but it was almost empty. I put the bottle down with a real snotty attitude. I said, "Here's your water." So here's your water. It should last you a while. My cousin started laughing, but Sherelle gave me the glass she was using and demanded that I wash it out. In my now nasty mood, I took the glass, put some water in it, and threw the water out of the bedroom window so I didn't have to go out on the other room again. Then I poured some more water in the glass and handed it to Sherelle. So she said she didn't want it. So I started finish off the water by drinking it from the bottle. She made Sherelle furious. She said it was nasty to do and smacked me in the hand as if she were my mother and I was a little kid. Needless to say, that started another argument. So when I complained about her, my foster mother told me that was simply the way Sherelle was, but I didn't want to hear that. I have one mother, my biological mother. If I didn't listen to her, I wasn't going to listen to someone who didn't have anything to do with me. Soraya was just a roommate. She wasn't anything to me. And she didn't have any papers that said she was my guardian. I didn't know at what point things changed, but somehow they did. They changed for the better. Somewhere along the line, we started to talk. I noticed we liked the same things, despite what went down. She was my roommate, and I realized that if I put down my guard, we might actually have a friendship. For example, like for example, Sherelle and I like to watch the same TV shows. We also have one thing in common that will never change. We are in the foster care system together. I began to see that we were sailing along the same boat, only in the frost like, only so only so only she was more equipped equipped than I was, and I needed her. She had been in the foster care system longer. She knew the way things worked. All the stuff I was doing, she already done. So I tried a different approach with her. I started to look at Sherelle differently. She's a good influence on me. After all, after all, she's 3 years older and she's in school working on her GED. She's very smart and has her life in perspective. She knows what she wants and goes for it. That's like her motto with anything: clothes, tape, guys. If she wants it and is available, it's good as hers. I don't know how she does it. I think it's a part of her personality. I don't look at Sherelle as just a roommate anymore. Now I look at her as a sister and a friend. We've started talking about boys, school, food, personal stuff. We talk about everything biological sisters talk about. Occasionally, I go to the store where she works and help her. We are equal. There's no better or worse where it comes to me and her. We share secrets and ask each other for advice about boys. Mostly I tell her stuff that even my social worker doesn't know Sherelle knows. When I cut a class or have an argument with a classmate, a teacher, or one of the girls, I also complain to her about my boyfriend William. She does the same with me. Our sexual relationship is a two-way street. Another night I wanted to know what Sherelle thought of me. Sherelle, do you look at me as, I asked her, a sister? A sister, she responded. Not Foster, I responded in amazement. Nope. I was happy that feeling was mutual. Sherelle, as my sister, has taught me that behind the labels, foster and roommate, there's an actual person. And with this actual person, a relationship can grow that lies deeper than the foster care system. So Tamara Bourgeois was 16 when she wrote this story. She now lives in Aust, Aust wait, she now lives in Augusta, Georgia, where she's a human student in high school and plays volleyball. Tamara is also the author of Walking Out of the Anger, page 120. Have you ever known someone who you started out disliking but who then became a good friend? What leads you to change your mind about this person? How did you develop a friendship? Think of a time when someone labeled you and then amused to know something about you. How did it feel to be labeled? So if you don't know about this question, or if you don't, so even though, have you ever known someone who you started out disliking, but who then became a good friend? So now this one is saying, if someone wasn't nice to you before, then and it was nice now, what leads you to change your mind about this person? How did you develop a friendship? Think of a time when someone labeled you and then amused to know. Then, wait. Think of a time when someone labeled you and then assumed to know something about you. How did it feel to be labeled? So, let's see. So now, so let's see. So let's see what labeled you means before we answer this question. So let's see. Labeled you. Labeled someone. So to label someone is to use a word or a phrase to describe someone or something, especially one that is not completely fair or true. So it's kind of like a rumor almost. When you spread words to a person about a person that's not true. So it says, think of a time when someone used a word or a phrase to describe you that's not completely fair or true. Then assume to know something about you. It can be anything. So it can be, let's see, I don't even know. So let's see what assume is also. Let's see. Well, even though assume is you take it for granted or take well take it for granted or without proof. So let's see. To assume means to believe something that is true, or even though no one has told you or even thought you have no proof. So that's what it is. So let's see. So let's see. Let's turn to the next page. So it says blend. It says bonding through cooking. When I enter foster care at age 13, I didn't know how to cook. There was a couple of simple things I could probably have prepared if I was given the ingredients. Other than that, I truly didn't know my way around the kitchen. My first foster home was pretty cool because it was just girls living there. That meant not waking up to raise toilet seat and no funky feet. It also meant being able to talk without worrying about being misunderstood. I couldn't picture talking to a couple of guys about how my heart got broken on a date. When making a casserole and apron on, imagine the chaos in the kitchen with a bunch of boys and girls together. Scary. So at the same time, when I got my first taste of cooking, I was able to share my thoughts and feelings for the first time and bond with girls my age. Remember the day they found out I couldn't cook? I remember the day they found out I couldn't cook. I went into the kitchen and saw one of the girls making something that wasn't familiar to me. Roman noodles. Roman noodles. I stirred into the pan, trying hard to see past the foam, and asked in disgust, What is that?" The girl gave me a look that said, "Are you for real?" Then she told me what it was. I asked her, "How do you make that?" At first she couldn't believe I asked her how to make ramen noodles. But after 5 minutes of stirring the favorite packet into the pan, she told me gruffly, "Get yourself a pan and fill it with water." Then she said, "Wait for the water to boil and add the noodles. Let it boil for 3 more minutes and take off the stove. Are you gonna eat it with the broth?" I said, "No." Then you're gonna need the calendar. The what? I asked perplexed. The calendar, the strainer, the metal thing with 1,000 holes in the handle. You have to use it. You have to use that to drain your noodles. And with that, she stalked out of the kitchen with her lunch. The other girls came strolling into the kitchen soon after she left. One by one, they started throwing questions at me. "Do you know how to make fried chicken? Do you know how to make eggs? Do you know how to cook meat? Do you know how to fry bacon?" As they fired the other questions at me, I shook my head no. The questions went on and on. My answer never changed. I honestly expected them to make fun of me and say all sorts of things behind my back because I was the new girl who don't know one thing about cooking. That was not the case. However, I am glad I am honest with them. I could have lied about being able to cook, but then I might have made a major mistake, like burning the house down. That wouldn't have been cool. The next cooking lesson came after the girls heard our foster mother complaining that I was walking around the house grumbling about a growling stomach. I had the nerve to take it a step further and asked my foster mother, "When are you going to cook dinner?" My foster mother took one look at me and said, "I don't cook for grown women. I'll cook once in a while where I feel like it, but otherwise, you go in there and fix yourself something to eat and close the door on your way out." I went into the kitchen feeling dejected and hungrier than ever. I looked through all the cabinets and in the refrigerator. Everything I had to be prepared and cooked in some way, shape, or form. I was ready to give up and go to bed hungry for the first time in my life when the cooking squad came on the scent. "What you doing, little bit?" Dane asked. "Just looking for something to eat. Just looking for something to eat," I said. "That's all. You can't be looking for something to eat, child. You don't have pots and pans out. Number 1. And number 2, you didn't put anything on the counters ready for cooking." So, so what do you want to eat, girl? What do you want to eat, girl? Lena asked. I don't know yet," I replied. "I'm still trying to decide. Why don't you make some macaroni and cheese to go with that chicken left over from yesterday?" "Oh, so why don't you make some macaroni and cheese to go with that chicken left over from yesterday?" Dane suggested. "Yeah, see, that's a good idea. They can have macaroni and cheese and chicken for dinner." Wow, Dane just came up with a solution so fast, cause she didn't want to go to bed hungry. She don't want to be hungry in general. So, and you can add some mixed vegetables on the side, you know, to get the vegetable proportion out of the way, Kayla offered. My reasoning was reeling at this point. I was hungry and I was gonna cook for myself. For real, get out of here. I wanted to continue my strict royal of waiting patiently for someone else to cook for me, something I'd done for 13 years running. Why break up such a delightful cycle? I thought there was cooking. I thought there was nothing wrong with being pampered for one more year. The idea of cooking for myself was revolting. I tried my hardest to get the girls to follow through with the food suggestions they made. Bad move. They made me feel like I should have been arrested for asking someone to cook for me at my age, and concluded by saying something that made me and my stomach mad. "I guess you're not all that hungry then." "Fine," I snapped. "Then show me how to cook that stew." Why is she saying that? Oh my gosh. "Fine," I snapped. "Then show me how to cook the stupid thing." Dog not laughing. They told me to get out all the ingredients I needed to make my first dinner. A bowl of leftover chicken, a cup of milk, and a pat of butter, the box of macaroni and cheese, the frozen pack of mixed vegetables. I don't have to tell you how my bad wait, I don't have to tell you how bad my stomach was growling. I felt like it was trying to snap it was I felt like it was trying to scrape my back. It was hard to concentrate, but I tried following their instructions as much as I could. I cooked the macaroni first and left it on the stove so it can stay toasty warm. I warmed up the chicken in the microwave for 3 minutes. I did the mixed vegetables last, since they take the least amount of time to cook. My first My very next cooking lessons involved something I swore I would never do in my life. Wait, my next cooking lessons involved something I swore I would never do in my life: cooking meat. Then three girls were determined to change my mind about that and fast. I was eating a bowl of cereal one morning when Dane, the oldest, came into the kitchen. I made a move to leave when she yelled, "Freeze!" "Of course you know." I sat right down and waited for her to bark. "I gotta teach you how to clean chicken." Not a good morning, "Did you sleep okay?" Not even a "what's up." She was determined to get right down to business and didn't care what I thought. As if on cue, Lena and Kayla came into the kitchen, pretending to be a sleepy eye. "What are you going to do with the chicken, Dane?" Kayla asked. "Nothing. She's going to clean the chicken for dinner tonight." Kayla looked at me, looked at Lena, and just went to the refrigerator for the milk to go with her cereal. Lena was nice about the whole thing. She came over to where I was sitting and asked, "Have you ever cleaned chicken before?" I shook my head no, because my mouth was full of cereal. My foot was full of cereal. "It's not that hard," she continued. All you need is a knife and some hot water. Show her, Dane. Come over here." So how did she not know to cook chicken? How did she not know to clean chicken leg? This is crazy. I walked over to the sense of the crime. When I got to the kitchen sink, Dane handed me the knife, picked up the rig, and took off the skin with the knife. So she got these girls showing her how to clean chicken, but yet she doesn't know how to cook. And that's why these girls are teaching her. I looked at her, look at the rig, look at the wing. I looked at her, looked at the wing, and started pulling the skin away. When I finished, I pulled the wing in a waiting bowl and stared at Dane. "Do the rest of them," she commanded and walked over to the refrigerator. As I finished the rest of the chicken pot, she handed me the linen. "Use the linen to season the meat after you wash it off in hot water. Do not use the dishwashing liquid. The hot water is enough." Believe me. Oh, believe me, I was not dumb enough to use the dishwashing liquid to wash meat. I knew I didn't want to taste any soap on the chicken. Personally, I think she was just saying that to be mean. I thought everything I did was wrong. But when everyone sat down to fry chicken that evening, they licked their fingers and asked for more. I thought I was in the clear after that night. Wrong. My lesson was to make breakfast for the whole house on cleaning day, Saturday. Jane came to my room at 8 in the morning. "Wake up, sleepyhead," she said, shaking me. Come with me in the kitchen. I got something to teach you." I got to tell you that at this point, the barking stopped. Dane started talking to me just any other person. I guess she started having respect for me since I put in a hurting on that chicken the last time I cooked. The lessons weren't all bad either while I cleaned the meat. Dane had asked me questions like where I live, what kind of music I like, and if I went to church. I found out that Dane hadn't lived too far from me before she came into foster care. We also liked the same kind of music, especially except counties and heavy metal. This time when Kane took me to the kitchen, Lena and Kayla didn't follow, which was another shock. I guess they figured they wouldn't get any more laughs out of me since I knew. somewhat what I was doing, then got all the things I needed to start my first big breakfast. First big breakfast. Eggs, bacon, sausage, bread, butter, milk, orange juice, and a box of pancakes. Get the frying pan out of the bottom cabinet. While I got this, she told me about the latest episodes between her and her boo, Derek. You gotta make pancakes with bacon and sausage. Put the bread in the toaster legs. And do you know what he said after I threw his shirt at him? No, what? He said, "You think I want to keep this shirt after you stunk it?" Oh, wait. He said, "You think I want to keep this shirt after you stunk it up?" Now I had to start swinging because I didn't, I don't stink as good as I'm smelling when I walked out of here. I couldn't help but laugh at that one. She thought I was laughing because she had to teach her man some manners. But I was really laughing because he had a point about that shirt. While Dane talked and laughed about all the things her boyfriend said and did, I prepared a batter in a pan for the pancakes. After the entire batter was finished, I fried up all the bacon and toasted the bread last, just like she asked. When I was finished, I felt proud of what I've made with my hands. My taste buds and stomach were pretty happy with what I did too. It made my heart feel good to see Kayla, the hardest eater of the house, ask me, "Can you show me how you make your pancakes so golden brown?" Mine's came mine's always come out funny looking and sick. When I was alone that evening, I couldn't help but puff up with pride. It actually felt good knowing there were dishes out there that were no longer a total mystery to me. I felt a little more I felt a little more like an adult because I didn't have to depend on anyone. I always thought that cooking for myself would be such a chore because of my huge appetite, but it really wasn't. I felt whatever I felt wonderful I felt wonderful whenever it was time to cook because it also meant doing something that my parents had never encouraged in my 13 years of living with them. Bonding with other girls but my age, it was another adventure for me that held many ups and downs, both in and out of the kitchen. So she's been cooking for so long, and I don't know, this girl was making breakfast for the whole house. She made a lot of breakfast so far. So today I really can't tolerate having people in the kitchen when I'm making something. But I don't forbid it. Whenever I'm cooking, I feel like I'm working on something that will help to make a bigger and better me. I've definitely came a long way from macaroni cheese, and I'm no longer cheesy inside about cleaning meat. So let me see what this means. No longer cheesy. Let's see. Let's see. Wait, cheesy. What a cheesy. Like I'm no longer too hard. Maybe cheesy, trying too hard. I'm no longer. I don't know. So I am no longer cheesy about about cleaning me making making friends has become second nature to me because just like cooking, it's no longer a crazy idea. Aurora Bavewell was 19, living in a group home and planning to go to college when she wrote this story. So it says, think of a time when you made a friend through doing something together. Do you think you would have become friends with this person if you haven't gotten to know each other through the activity? Think of a time when someone taught you, wait, think of a time when someone taught you a skill you didn't know. What was it like to admit you didn't know something, be willing to learn, and trust the other person to teach you? So it can be any skill. It can be we can do we can say cooking skills, exercise skills, and we can say yoga skills. We can do we can do repairman skills. It's different skills that anyone can teach you. Crochet is a skill, and cooking is a skill. So yes it is. So let's see. So it says, think of a time when you made a friend through doing something together. Like, or doesn't have to be right now. It could be for in general. It could be baking. Do you think you would have become friends with this person if you haven't gotten to know each other through the activity? Or think of a time when someone taught you a skill you didn't know, and what was like to admit you didn't know something. Be willing to know, and trust the other person to teach you. So it's questions here. It's questions here. So at least, but it's a common question. Like, to be honest, questions are not even too hard, to be honest. So at least, so let's see if I can move on to this story. So it says, a love too strong. I had to fall flat on my face before I learned I was alone in this world. I came from a home where there was no love showing. At night, I'd sit up in bed and cry. There was no one to give me a shoulder to lean, or when I needed support. A pat on my back when I did something good, or even a sympathetic ear when I failed. My father passed away when I was 8, and one day my stepmother simply never returned home. I went to live with my parent no with my paternal grandmother, and then a mineral aunt, but neither living situations worked out. I felt like someone had cursed me, that there was a dark cloud hanging over my head. When I was 16, I came to a group home. For the first time, I met people who really cared about me, who accepted me without judgment, who gave me the love and attention I needed. But for the first few months at the group home were hard. I was scared. I didn't know how to act, whether or not to close myself off from people. Back home, I was so used to nobody caring that I just stayed home in my room. I wasn't used to receiving love and attention, but the staff made it hard for me to stay isolated. The staff got involved in my everyday life. They were always interested in hearing about what was happening in school or my social life. Things my family never asked about. We had independent living class once a week and we had independent living class once a week. And the teacher always made it very interested. She would ask us questions to get us open up about our feelings. Our staff member in particular, Miss Thomas, really touched my heart. The first week I got to go to group home, Miss Thomas called a house meeting for all the girls. We discussed many things, such as boyfriends, the staff behavior towards the girls, and age difference among the residents. So I can remember all 12 of us. I can remember all 12 of us sitting sitting around the living room. Miss Thomas wanted us to talk one at a time, but every time someone spoke, there were at least 9 interruptions from people who disagree. Miss Thomas became very upset with our disrespectful behavior. Everyone was pointing at each other, getting overexcited. The phone kept ringing, and it was just crazy. Suddenly, Miss Thomas began to cry. It was the first time I had ever. It was the first time I had ever seen anyone cry for someone else. It showed me how deeply she cared for us, how much it bothered her, that we didn't care for anyone but ourselves. Since I never had anyone take such an interest in me before, I began to admire Miss Thompson daily. The rest of the staff did nothing except what they were paid to do, but Miss Thomas was always there to listen, to see how she could help us. She encouraged us to visit our families and checked on how we were doing in school. I found myself getting attracted to her, but one day she was transferred from my house to another house with the agency. When Miss Thomas left, I closed myself up again. I began to stay to myself and hide in my room. I felt she was the only person who could ever take away my feelings of being unloved. She seemed the only one who accepts me as I was, who knew my needs, and now she was gone. The funny thing is, Miss Thomas didn't know how I felt about her. When the staff told her now, I had closed up again. She acted very cold-hearted when she showed me. As I later realized, Miss Thomas felt I become too dependent on her, that she could never be the perfect mother figure. I imagine I didn't want her to be distant from me. I want her to love me back. I hated her for letting me down and hated myself even more because I had no control over my feelings. I was scared and I went through emotional hell. I had flashbacks to the time I lived with my family, the time when nobody cared. My family had felt that if I had a roof over my head and clothes on my back, there was no need to say I love you. I dreaded the return of that lonely feeling. Mrs. Smith, the director of social work, went to war with me over my attraction to Miss Thompson. She kept reminding me that my feelings were very unrealistic and that it was inappropriate for me to act and feel that way towards an agency staff members. I despised Mrs. Smith for telling me that, although at times I knew deeply in my heart that she was right and really cared about my well-being. I stood firm. I couldn't face being unloved again, and I was so terrified at losing Miss Thomas. I was more determined than ever to win back her attention. I still admire Miss Thompson, my feelings for her to go up and down like a roller coaster. I realized that Miss Smith was partly right, that sometimes unfair that my expectations were unrealistic and sometimes unfair. But on the other hand, my attractment to Miss Thomas was just another bond that had been broken by the foster care system. I was searching for love and attention, no matter how they came. As a victim of the system, I have learned never to take anything for granted and that relationships aren't always permanent. I have learned not to count on too many people, but to look within myself for guidance and security. That way, if anyone disses me, I won't be disappointed. I won't be disappointed. I've learned to open up to those who are willing to open up to me, but at the same time, not to mistake their kindness for a parent's love. That's the kind of love that can never be misplaced. That can never be replaced. Can never be replaced. So, Tamara Crawford was 19 when she wrote this story. She later went to college. An experience she describes in College Can Be Hell on page 96. So it says, so now let's see. So let's see. Have you ever wanted to be close to someone who didn't return to your strong feelings? How did the situation turned out? How do you feel about that experience now? Have you ever known someone who expected more from you than you could give? How did you feel about this person expectation? So let's see what this gives me. But I'm going to give you some hints on questions. So to see. So the first question says, have you ever wanted to be close to someone who didn't return to your strong feelings? Like, it could be your boyfriend, your girlfriend, everything. Or how did that situation turn out? If whatever your friends didn't get along, or how did the situation turn out if a friend didn't get along or didn't get along, and how do you feel about that experience now? Or have you known someone who expected more from you than you could give? It could be your family, your friends, or it could be anybody. Or how did you, so depending on their attitude. So it says, how did you feel about this person's expectation? So depending on their attitude and how they treat you. Eh. So let's see what person expectation is before we get to the next chapter. So how did you feel about this person expectation? So let's see what expectation is. So it says expectations are the strong belief that something will happen or be the case. So even though someone's expectation of what you will someone else's expectation you will base not on who you are, but that person's own, which we'll learn. So at least, so let's see, what is the expectation? What are expectations of a person? This is a good question people might ask. So let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Expectations. So more than anything else, the person's expectations determines their reality, and the expectations also impact those around us. In a self-fulfilling prophecy, people may rise or fall depending on their expectation or belief. So it says, what is examples of a personal expectation? Person is open-minded. People is honest. People is fair. People is people is hardworking. It's based on who they are as a person. So it says, how do you feel about this person's expectation? So it's not based on who you are. It's based on the person. It's about the person. So, what can I say? Expectations are the strong belief that something will happen or be the case. So let's see what this is. Person's expectations. So, even though we'll learn about this later, but let's move on to the next chapter. Let's move on to the next chapter. So it says, learning to forgive. Every time I saw my mother, we would argue. Well, every time I saw my mother, we would argue. We will, she'd bring up things that happened in the past and throw them in my face. I found it's hard to forgive her for the problems that lead me to end up in a juvenile detention center. My social worker, Miss Davis, knew my relationship with my mother was not good. My relationship with my mother was not good and urged me to go to therapy. Miss Davis wanted to see us get along better. I didn't want to go any I didn't want to go to any stupid therapy. I felt like I felt I'd be wasting my time because my relationship with my mother wasn't going to get better. Miss Davis told me I had to go to therapy because it was part of the service I was supposed to receive while I was in a foster care system. I felt I was being forced to do something I didn't want to do, but I finally decided to go because I didn't want to be sent to another group home. I started seeing Mrs. Smith on Saturdays. I could see she had a nice personality from the way she spoke to the kids. She had a nice personality from the way she spoke to the kids and their mothers. The first time we spoke briefly in her office, she was very patient, and I felt comfortable talking To her. She explained that she was going. She explained that she wasn't going to try to rush me into expressing myself about my problems with my mother. With my mother, she wanted me to get to know her better before I started confiding in her. I didn't like talking about my problems. I felt I couldn't trust anybody. I had been hurt a lot by many loved ones who were supported to be in my corner when things got rough. They let me down big time by misusing my trust. So let's see, misusing my trust. So so let's see. It says, what does it mean when you misuse someone's trust? So, well, we can say big time misusing my trust. Let's see, misusing my trust. So, misusing someone's trust meaning, let's see. Let's see. Misuse trust. Let's see, misuse trust. So it says occurs where the person in a position of responsibility betrays the trust of an individual and uses their relationship to see when you misuse somebody's trust and then you ruined it and then you ruined the trust and then they're not gonna trust you anymore because you misused it. By going to therapy each week, I started to express myself better. I took my time telling Mr. Smith about my problems to see if I could trust her. I told her I told her it was going to be difficult forgiving my mother because I was still carrying so much anger. Whenever my mother tried to call me at the group home, I would tell the staff I didn't want to speak to her. She leave let's see. She leave messages for me to call her, but I didn't want to have anything to do with her. I didn't want to have anything to do with her. I have been making it without her. So why did I need her now when I saw her on the streets? I would walk past her without saying anything. The reason things got this bad between us was that my mother treated me the same way my father treated her. My father verbally abused my mother. He would belittle her every time they argue. I always felt my mother took her anger towards my father on me. I found it harder to get along with her than my sister did. She always treated me differently from them. She went shopping with them and spent time with them, but not with me. I reacted by spending a lot of time away from home. See, this is what it. This is how it is. Depending on how hard this. So depending on how hard this relationship is, like somebody's like sometimes depending on the relationship, it's hard. Sometimes when we have these type of relationships. One Saturday, Mrs. Smith went to talk about wait one Saturday Mrs. Smith wanted me to talk about why I ended up in the detention center. I told her that one night my mother and I got into a huge fight when I came home very late and talked back to her. My mother got real upset and tried to hit me with a chair. When I blocked it with my hands, the chair fell on top of her. She then tried to hit me. She tried this. She then tried to hit me on the head with a glass vase. My sister's boyfriend got in front of me and blocked her swinging with her hand. The vase caught his hand so badly that he had to go to the hospital for 100 stitches. I got upset while I was telling this to my therapist. She stopped me for a minute so I could calm down. I was very emotional and frustrated. When we continued, when we continued, I told Mr. Smith how my mother came to court and accused me of cutting my sister's boyfriend with a piece of glass. She also told the court that I hit her with a chair and that she had to go to the doctor. I was locked up in a detention center for 2 weeks before going to a juvenile prison for a year and a half. I felt a year and a half was taken away from me for no reason. Mrs. Smith told me that I had to learn to forgive my mother and release the pain inside me. She said the first step in forgiving someone, she said the first step in forgiving someone is to really mean it from the heart. I heard what she said, but I didn't know if I was really going to make that first step. I didn't know if I was really I didn't know if I was really to open my heart to my mother and forgive her. I left therapy that day feeling like a better person. I finally gotten the chance to release some anger by talking about my problems. During my ride on the train, I thought about my mother and what Mrs. Smith said about forgiving. I knew everybody makes mistakes and deserves a second chance. My mother called me around 7 o'clock that same night. Lisa, one of the staff workers, asked me if I wanted to speak to her. I took the phone and told my mother that we needed to talk things out. My mother agreed, and she sounds very good. She wanted me to come to the house after school. I went to see my mother the next day. I wanted to talk to her about her problems. I realized as I got older that I was at fault for some of them. I never listened to anybody, and I wanted things to get done my way. I knew I had I knew I had to stop feeling sorry for myself for ended up in the detention center. I wanted to tell my mother how sorry I was that I didn't listen to her and that I was disrespectful to her. I wanted to tell her how I felt about her as a mother, how I wanted to start a new relationship as mother and son. She was cooking dinner for two of my sisters when I walked in the kitchen. My mother asked me how I was doing in school and my group home. I was nervous to be under the same roof with her because this was the first time in 2 years that I was able to come home to visit. I didn't want the same thing to happen as happened the last time. When the cops had to remove me from my house, I went to my big sister's room to talk with her until my mother was finished cooking. So my mother called me from my sister's room to have dinner and talk her alone at the table. She told me how sorry she was for coming to court and seeing me end up in a detention center. She said she'd been hurt by the way I treated her that night. I told my mother that I forgave her and that I wanted to start a new relationship with her and just move on. I could see tears running down her cheeks when she told me I was the only son God gave her and she loved me tremendously. I stood up to hug my mother because she knew because I knew she really meant every word she said. I don't want you guys to cry at this. This is the mother and son's relationship. I understand this could be a little tough to like forgiveness and stuff. So if you guys cry about this, it's okay. But this is not an easy relationship to deal with. So let's see. My relationship with my mother is much better now. We're able to communicate better and we get along well. I could go to the house anytime I want and eat. I could go home on weekends passes and spend all the major holidays with her. The reason our relationship has changed is that we both realize that we both realize, accept that I couldn't just blame my mother for what she did. If I would never have gotten so worried and angry, I'm glad my relationship with my mother has improved, but we still have problems. I'm able to deal with them better and talk about them without holding any negative feelings inside. If it wasn't for therapy, our relationship wouldn't have changed. I just wanted her to love me the same way she loved my sisters. My mother and I started going to therapy together to try to prevent what happened in the past from ever happening again. It was hard being in therapy with her because I was afraid she would get mad if I say something she didn't like. My mother is the type of person who gets offended easily and is not afraid to defend herself. When I was in therapy alone, it was easier to express myself and the room was less tense. But eventually, I got used to being in therapy with her. We spoke about the problems we had in the past. I felt wonderful because we were able to communicate and be in the same room together. I feel our relationship is better, but I wouldn't want to destroy it by rushing home before I'm ready. I want to take it slow, but if something terrible happened to her health and she needed me at home to take care of her, I wouldn't even think twice about packing my bags and going to be by her side. I love her with all my heart. Christopher E. Bago was 18 when he wrote this story. Later, he attended Long Island University for 2 years, and then went on to graduate from Marine Corps basic training. Christopher is the author. Christopher is also the author of Control My Temper, page 21. Page 21. Page 21. So the questions here says, have you ever forgiven someone who hurt you badly? If so, how did that make you feel? How did you feel? If you haven't been able to forgive the person, how did that feel? Think of someone with whom you have a difficult relationship. What makes a relationship difficult? What steps are you willing to take to improve it? So I'll give you a second to think about it. Like, even though it says, have you ever forgiven someone who hurt you badly? You can say yes, or you can say no. You can say yes, you've forgiven a friend, your parents, anybody. If so, how did that make you feel? You can say better, or is it good? Or if you haven't been able to forgive the person, how did that how does that feel? If you haven't been able to forgive the person, then if I haven't if you haven't been if you haven't been able to forgive that person, I would feel maybe upset. It says think someone for who you have a difficult relationship. What makes the relationship difficult, and what steps are you willing to take to improve it? So let's see. So it could be a family member. It could be it could be friends. So what are steps you're willing to take to improve it? Like saying I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done things that wasn't supposed to have been done. You can acknowledge it. You can we can talk things out together. See? That's not a hard question. See? So it says initiative, taking charge. So initiative is taking action, meeting challenges, and solving problems. The opposite of taking initiative is giving up or feeling helpless. Taking initiative is hard because some problems seem too overwhelming to solve. Initiative helps you see that you can make a difference in your own life. So, initiative of fourth resilience means facing life's challenge head on. When you take initiative, you begin a positive cycle of solving problems, overcoming fears, and being a winner. Knowing you've met challenges in the past boosts your confidence in the future. When problems come your way again, as they certainly will, you'll know how to handle them. Initiative is a resilience because it puts you in charge. Like many people, you found initiative much easier to talk about than to practice. Something in a voice tears you down. They tell you you're not capable, that it's too risky to try. It seems easier to avoid problems by seeing yourself as a victim. Being a victim may get you sympathy and keeps people from criticizing you. Taking initiative is always a risk. You can fail or look foolish. All the writers in this section choose to accept that risk. They've learned to take initiative and solve problems. Initiative helps them see their problems as challenges they can overcome. So it says, it takes work to flirt. So, flirting, it's one of the necessaries of the teenager's life. It's such a powerful skill and the first steps to attracting that special someone. But how does it work? How can you harness its power? Most important, how in this world do you start? Flirting Flirting is like a game. The only way it works is if you can practice. Trust me on this. I know before I bought a book called 101 Ways to Flirt. I had some major problems with flirting. I didn't know the first thing to do. Okay, so I still don't. All I know is that it's got easier over time and with practice. Don't ask me why I bought the book. It was kind of super of the moment, and of course, I wanted a girlfriend, but I'm glad I bought it because that book has actually helped boost my confidence. It taught me how to be approachable and how to tell who's flirting with me. There's nothing wrong with getting a little help, even if people insist that flirting should come naturally, because sometimes it doesn't. That doesn't mean you'll always be a bad flirt. It just means you have to, it just means you may have to work at it like me. During the early stages of my my adolescence, let's see, adolescence. Let's see. Of During the early stages of my adolescence, oh my goodness, adolescence. During the early stages of my adolescence, I was quite shy and hung around the same group type of kid. Everyone in my group had the same mushroom haircut down past by our eyes and the same clothing styles, with expensive name brands plastered across our bodies. We even had the same taste in girls, ones who pretended to have high-pitched little girl voices and who tried to be innocent and cute while milking us for money. A flirting technique made us nauseous. The same procedure, the same style. No, I don't even know what this is. No, no, no adrenaline, no direct contact. At least not in the beginning. When you like a particular girl, the only flirting, the only flirting was ultra quick, lighting speed, blink in the eye stare, and that was it. Then came detective work. So ins- after you initiate the after you initiated the nanosecond look, you find out as many things as possible about the person from friends who knew other friends who knew her friends. You get all the information you could from brand and underwear to school. To the people she knew, not until you did private eye work and the whole dark could you even approach the girl. But I got sick of playing it. I got sick of playing it safe. I wanted to open myself to a larger world. I wanted to be open and loud. So first I changed my appendix. I cut my hair short and styled it really funky. So gelled, gelled and sticky. Let's see. So these. Alright, cut my hair short and styled it really funky. Gelled up and sticking straight up. I gave my waterboard a spice of different clothing, like post-year workers' pants. People even said my voice sounded different. Then I changed my flirting style. The first time I seriously got into the game was when I was 15. Well, the what? The first time I seriously got into the game was when I was 15. Was 15. I tried, well, sort of. It was a failure. It was an inline skating in a park after school. I'm in a pretty good skater, so I tried showing off a bit. I caught the eyes of a few girls. Then I found one I thought was interesting and started to advance very slowly towards where she was sitting. I was really nervous and I had to pee. What a bad combination, I talked to myself constantly. Should I? Should I? Why not, Danny? You can do it. Nah, I'm just going to look like a fool. Come on, you big chicken. Do you want to be a single pathetic fool in the late 40s? Looking at porn magazines and downloading sex pics off the internet? Are you that sad? Huh? Are you? Alright, shut up. I'll do it. For the next half hour, I skated back and forth trying to be obvious, building up my guts, getting ready to say something. Finally, some words came out of my mouth. Huh? Hey, hi there. Cough, sniff, scratch at nose. So, hey, what's your name? There is no answer. See? She didn't answer. I look like a fool now. You idiot. Do you expect her to hear you from 15 from you idiot. Do you expect her to hear you from 50 feet away? I moved close to her. This time I was shaking, biting my lip, scratching her head. Hmm. huh? Hi? She was talking to a friend, so she didn't pay much attention. And I also spoke so low that I might as well have been talking to myself. Hi. It was just a little louder. She turned. Hi. It was just a little louder. She turned and looked up. Excuse me? She said. Do you have the time? I know. It's such a cheesy line, but I had to say something. What? Do you have the time? Drops of sweat were running down my forehead. I should have put on some extra deodorant. Yeah, it's 4:45, thanks. And that was it. I went shaking off my head. I went shaking off my heart still racing, my head dropping. They they got up and left. So my first attempt was pretty sad, but I had to start somewhere. Besides, little failures like these can help you find out what to work on, how to avoid the same mistakes, how not to be so devastated when you do get rejected. After that in After that innocent, I didn't do much besides look. I didn't want to feel like a moron again. But after being pestered by my conscience, I worked myself up and decided to try again. I had some small success, like one time when a girl on the subway talked to me for a while, but in the end, she didn't give out her telephone number. I felt like there was a big rejection stamp across my forehead. So I coped it and continued to flirt, which was the most important thing. I figured was I figured was like fishing. You just had to be patient. You cast your style of bait. Within 2 seconds, you you could get a bite. You could get a bite. Or you could stand there all day with a few nipples here and there. You can only do so much to attract a fish. And when you finally do catch one, you might throw it back into the pond. But you have to continue to try. Then one day, I was in a store with my friend Peter, and I saw 101 ways to flirt. I figure, hey, why not? Pete made fun of me. When I asked him if he wanted to chip in, he said no. I was talking a little loud, so he was probably embarrassed. Why not? It looks fun, and you can use a couple of tips yourself, considering you go to that you call that you could that considering you go to an old boys school. I said. So he agreed. It seems like it worked as soon as I brought it. The cashier took one look at the book and smiled at me. I shrugged and smiled back. It's not for me. So it's not for me, I said defensively. Yeah, right. Are you sure you need this? She asked, waving around. Hey, if that ain't for it, I don't know what is. If
Mom, I'm sorry to interrupt your story. Are you cooking or do you want me to cook? And no, you don't have to do it right this second, but I'm asking.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
If just buying this book get if if just buying this book get a conversation going. Think of what could happen if I read it. The book doesn't guarantee you could find that special someone, but it gives you enough tips so you can increase your chances. The authors offer concrete tips like good flirts don't ever make contact with body parts than eyes. The only thing I disagree with is that the authors make flirting sound easy. When it gets right down to it, flirting can be pretty complicated. For instance, even though smiling is sometimes form of flirting, it isn't always. If someone's just very smiley, you can get the wrong idea, which can make you a little depressed when you found out the truth. We still, the floating book has helped me get over my anxiety and control my fears. Before I got the book, I asked myself a lot of questions, doubt myself, and go through other nonsense that got in the way of potential good float. Now I more easily came up with a question to start a conversation. I've came up with lines besides, do you have the time? I hear a lot of people say, why do you need a book? Why are you desperate? But the fact is, if the fact is that for some people who aren't born with a high charisma, books can help. What's wrong with a little assistance? So if you're buying a flirting book, don't think of it as I'm desperate. I can't get a date. Think of it as, hey, I'm smart. Gonna give me more dates and meet new people. Meet new people. Flirting books are like the Princeton or the Princeton's review of dating. They don't guarantee a perfect six 1600, but they can raise your score. Denny Gahn was 17 when he wrote this story. He now attends college, writes plays, and is an actor. So think of a problem in your think of a problem in your life that you once viewed as hopeless, but each but eventually solve. What has helped you solve it? What changed your view of the problem? Have you taken initiative by reading a self help book for advice on solving a problem? If so, what was the result? If not, would you consider using a self help book someday? So, so it says, think of a problem in your life that you once viewed as hopeless, but eventually solve. What helped you solve it? What changed your view of the problem? Like, what change? It says, have you taken initiative by reading a self help book for advice? It can be any book. It can be Anxiety of the Book for kids, for teens. Yep, we can get. Or if so, what was the result? If not, would you consider using a self help book? So these are questions to think about. Really, it's not questions relating to the story, but it's just questions based on your experience or experiencing through problem, like experience your big problems in your life. So it's not really questions, but it's so at least that's the problem. So at least so we'll come back to that question and let's see. So my struggle with weed. When I was 13, I had a lot of problems with my mother. She abused me, and I stole things from her to get revenge. It got me so bad, I ran away from home and lived on the streets for 3 months. During these 3 months, I started smoking weed. I, so I did it to get it. I did it to get my mind off my troubles. And since I had lots of troubles, I smoked a lot of weed. Sometimes I smoke weed with my crew, other times. I smoke it by myself. I usually got high after the first blunt, but if I didn't, then two more afterwards did the trick. Every time I got high, I would go through the same stages of revealing memories. Some of these memories were very violent, while others were calm and quiet. For example, I always get very quiet after I smoke my first blunt. I sit down and think about the times my adoptive mother abused me and called me Negro, and black boy just because I have black friends. As I remember her verbal abuse, my anger began to build. I get mad and become very violent because my weed made these memories so velvet. When I was high, when I was high, it seemed as if the abuse happened yesterday. And yesterday, I got so angry that I called people names and try to fight them. If they answer back, "Hey, you got the time?" I once asked this guy when I was high. "No," the guy said. He just kept walking. "You know why you ain't got the time? 'Cause you too damn poor to buy a watch." The guy stopped and looked at me like I was crazy. "What did you say?" he asked as he came towards me. "Chill," my homie said. They jumped in front of him and told him I was crazy. I was in the back yelling at them to let them fight me, but my homies made the guy walk away. After I tried to fight someone, I ran around, knock over garbage cans, and chase cats into the street so they get hit by cars. This stage lasts about 2 hours. 2 hours. Then, just as the high was ended, I went into a stage where I felt depressed and guilty. I blamed myself for getting abused. I cried until all my tears were gone. Then I would wipe my eyes, get high again, and go through the same moods all over again. Fun, wasn't it? By getting high, I was only trying to block out all the pain I felt from living on the streets. But the only thing that smoking weed did was bringing back bad memories. Instead of blocking out the pain, it only made it worse. Yet I kept on with my weed smoking. I didn't want the bad memories to disrupt my pleasure high. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop them. Memories of a childhood that was always sad and filled with gloom. A childhood filled with abusive neglect and racism from my adoptive mother. Nights when I went to bed without food or water. Days when my adoptive mother made me wear the same clothes over and over without changing them. Memories that hunted me every time I got high. I felt so tortured that I decided there was the only way. There was only. I decided. I felt so tortured that I decided there was only one way out to quit smoking. The high was the high was excellent, but if giving it up meant that the horrible memories wouldn't haunt me, then I figured I could live without it. It took a lot of patience to quit. I was really addicted. It was it was like Mike Tyson giving up boxing. Day by day, I tried to think of something to do to help me quit. The craving was so unbearable. It was like finding $1 million on the street and then having to give it back. Sometimes I felt like getting high. I go to sleep or eat a lot. Other times I take long walks. Then I got a new girl, so I was able to take my mind off weed. I stopped hanging out with the people who smoke weed. If they offer me but us, I tell them no. There were times when I wanted to smoke so badly, they would offer any amount of money to someone to get it for me. But I knew I had to stop if I wanted the memories to stop. After about 7 weeks of suffering, the craving finally disappeared. It seemed like it happened overnight. One day I was dying to smoke. The next morning, I couldn't even stand thinking about it. I finally realized that Ganja hadn't done anything for me, but put me through 7 weeks of pure hell. That was 2 years ago, and I haven't picked up a blunt since. So you see, there's another reason why people stop smoking weed other than getting busted or because of what it physically does to their bodies. No one ever talks about the inner feelings they have when they smoke weed. No one ever talks about the bad memories or feeling paranoid or guilty. If they did, people would understand that smoking weed doesn't make pain go away. It only makes it comes back twice as hard. My story may seem odd because not many people come forward and tell the real reasons why they quit. Well, I may start a trend. Craig G. Jeffrey was 17 years old when he wrote this story. Not long after the events he writes about here, he went into the group home. He describes an out without a doubt. Page 48, Craig says, when I had my problems with weed, I wasn't yet out as a gay person. My true story shows how much he my true story shows how much I've grown and changed over the years. So, think about a habit you have. What person does it serve, and does it help or hurt you? Do you want to get rid of? Do you want to get rid of it? Why or why not? Have you or someone you know ever taken steps to stop some harmful behavior? What qualities do you need to take control of your life this way? So it says, let me see if I can go. Let's see. Right here, let's go quick to this question. So it says, think about a habit you have. What purpose does it serve? Does it help or hurt you? Do you want to get rid of it? Why or why not? Have you or someone you know ever taken steps to stop some harmful behavior? What qualities do you need to take control of your life this way? So let's see. So even though it says, what habits did you have? Or what purpose did it serve? So, and the second question says, have you or someone you know have taken steps to stop some harmful behavior like smoking or something? So let's see. Let's move on to the next one. It says, college can be hell. Going off of college for the first time can be a scary experience for anyone, but especially for a foster child. We don't have the support of a parent, and a lot of times we feel as if we're alone in the world. Because I left for community college, I wonder what college life would be like for me. Although I want so badly to be independent, I still wanted someone there to fall back on. How would I survive all alone in a strange place? Also, could I make it as a college student? Would I fail or dropped out? I worried about people finding out I was from a group home and treating me differently or making fun of me. Even I even wondered my professors would treat me different. Although I had gone on several college tours and seen a campus of my school before I went there. I was still nervous. Was obnoxious to know if I would be compatible with my roommate or if we would have problems. If we would have problems. When I first started, things seemed fine. I had 6 classes and the workload was alright. But then I met a guy and started spending lots of time with him, skipping classes and not studying. I felt I had all the time in the world to pull my grades up. So I slowed down, missing classes I didn't like. I started having trouble, and my grades dropped tremendously in history and math. I felt myself using the excuse of being in foster care every time I missed a class or failed the exam. I would say to myself, oh, I'm from a group home. Who cares if I go to class or not? Who cares if I failed an exam or even if I passed one? I felt if the words group home child were hanging over my head, even though nobody treated me differently. In the back of my mind, I felt they did. Like at the Billsaw's window, the place that deals with your bills. I felt they were hesitant to deal with me because they knew I was in foster care. My self esteem was very low. I sometimes just gave up and didn't care. As a result, I completely my first semester. Alright, so my self esteem was very low. I sometimes just gave up and didn't care. As a result, I completed my first semester with a 1.0 grade point average, a D average, and ended up on an academic probation my second semester. I felt nobody cared for me, and it showed. I felt this way because I didn't have any family support. I kept making the mistake of comparing my life to the lives of students who had parents calling often and coming to visit. These students got care packages filled with all sorts of things, including then their favorite food, money, and supplies they asked for. I wanted so badly to have someone cared about me like that. I felt neglected, not to mention jealous. I remember hearing my roommate talk on the phone with her mother, describing her day and what classes she liked. I wished so badly that I were my roommate, talking to my mother or to someone who really cared for me. Although I did stay in contact with people from my former group home and with my junior high school dean, they weren't a substitute for family. Just before the end of the first semester, I realized I had wasted time feeling sorry for myself and had to do something about it. I never thought the semester would go so quickly. Like I said before, when you first get to college, you think you have all this time. Then before you know it is over. Gradually, I realized that time was passing me by. I was so wrapped up in worrying about having people do things for me and care for me that I wasn't taking the time to care for myself. I got tired of using the fact that I was in foster care as an excuse. I tried to failing my exam. I was tired of failing my exams. I was tired of crying. At the same time, I noticed that people I unveil weren't doing so well in their classes neither. I finally realized it wasn't because I was in foster care that I was failing my classes. I was failing my classes. It was because I had been paying too much attention to what people thought of me and how they treat me, and too little attention to my schoolwork. I had to accept the fact that I was in foster care. I had to move on. It wasn't being from a group home holding me back. It was me holding myself back. So the group home will soon be part of my past. I didn't want to fail in college. I didn't want to fail in college because people didn't show me any support, which sounds funny. Now that I look back and think of the problems people face in this world, like children being abused and neglected. It was right after spring break that I decided to wipe my eyes and find ways to start my independent life. The first thing I decided to do was was attend all classes Monday morning and start pulling my grades up. In my second semester, my grade point average shot up to 3.25. I was studying night and day, especially subjects like history, which I always had problems with. Which I had problems with. I worked with a tutor and I also follow peer tutors, fellow college students who were good in a particular subject to help me. In exchange, I type a paper for them or make them dinner. I started letting professors know I was having problems. Some of them would meet me privately to help me. Or, if they saw I was struggling, they would let me know by saying, I see your grades are dropping again. Are you having trouble studying? Some gave me methods or extra materials to use. My next step was to get counseling. When you're on the academic probation, you're actually getting group counseling. I had counseling in a group home, but I've never liked it because I felt we were prejudged. But in college, I felt it would help to have a one-on-one counselor. I felt I needed help dealing with the transition from the group home to college life. I had a nice counselor who listened to me talk about school, my group home, and other things on my mind. At the end of the section, she would give me suggestions on how to deal with my problems. She helped me realize that while I couldn't have the family relationship I went so badly, I could thank God for the people who were taking the time to help me any way they could. I also get a part-time job to make some extra money when the group home couldn't help me pay for whatever I needed. I was even able to put some money in the bank for rainy days. Basically, I started trying not to depend on the foster care system too much. By my third semester in school, I was no longer seeking as much support from the agency or my social worker. Everyone in the foster care has a social worker. I was trying to make it on my own. I continued to get through counseling because I found it a very big help. Through counseling, I realized that just because people live with their biological families does not automatically make their lifestyle better than mine. I also realized that in some ways, being a foster child was an advantage for me. For example, for example, living in a group home was a big help in adjusting to college life because I had already learned how to live with different people's personalities and attitudes. Also, I had already learned a sense of independence. Just like in just like in a group home, when you're in college, you have to do things for yourself and make sure things are getting done. One thing that was easier for me when I was living in a group home was that everyone has something in common. Your family can't or won't take care of you. You all understand that and can talk about it. But in college, you meet people from all sorts of different backgrounds, and sometimes you feel envious of their lifestyle. When other students were planning their spring breaks in Hawaii or Virginia, I was deciding what move I was deciding what movie I was going to see during the break, or whether to go visit a relative or stay in a group home. Sometimes I would just end up at the group home the entire time. I learned that in order for anything to change, I first must care about myself. Then I'm able to care about the situation and do what I needed to do. I'm looking forward to finishing my last semester. So Tamakwa Crawford wrote this story when she was 21. After she left the group home, she describes in Love Too Strong, page 77. So, so, what's this? So it says, think of a time when you felt sorry for yourself because of hurtful things that happened in your past. How did feeling that way, how did feeling that way affect you? What steps did you take or could take to get over those feelings? Have you ever felt jealous of people you thought had it easier than you did? What steps did you take or could you take to stop comparing yourself negativity to others? So, even though a lot of people do this, and it says, think of a time when you felt sorry for yourself because of hurtful things that happened in your past. How did feeling that way affect you, or what steps did you take or could you take to get over those feelings? Have you ever felt jealous of people you thought had it easier than you did? What steps did you take or could you take to stop comparing yourself negativity of others? So, let's see. So some people feel sorry for, let's see. It's it says, what steps did you take or could you take to get over those feelings? So I was saying, so let's see. Or have you ever felt jealous of people you thought had it easier than you did? Or what steps did you take or could you take to stop comparing yourself negativity to others? So steps. So this is not an easy question, but think of a time when you feel sorry for. Let's see. So it's so it says poetry brought out the performer in me. When I was younger, I had no real creative outlets. I couldn't dance to save my life. I could sing okay, but not well enough. Aiming sports that requires physical contact were out of the question. But I always loved reading and writing. When I was a little, I get lonely. Books were always there, and when I needed them, they were always willing to share them. So just like the last question, share their knowledge. The first book I read was Little Woman, and I wanted to share what I felt inside. I would pick up my pen and write my feelings down. When I was 10, I discovered my love of writing and poetry. I began to write because I wanted to express my feelings. I learned how to write poetry and studying the poetry of Robert Frost, Michael Michelangelo, Langton, Huggins, and Torziki Spenge. From there, I developed my own style. I like to use metaphors, and I didn't like to sugarcoat the subjects I wrote about. My poems came from my imagination and saw things I saw. I sit and try to come up with little verses. Most of them they rhyme. My first poem went like this: the world is a gem. On the smallest item, an oyster shell, there's a pearl that grows and grows. It dwells beneath the the eternal sea, as green as grass can ever be. Up above of the flower grow, as fairly red and rubies glow, and up above of sapphire skies, diamond stars are drifted by. I wrote that one when I was 17. I like comparing things with nature, and also wrote another person called Brown Eyed Susan, in which I compare a flower to a girl. As I matured, I began to write about deeper issues like love, child abuse, rape, incest, destruction of nature, black man and woman being neglected in this country, politics, sex, war, and myself. Some of the poems were very personal experience, but most were not. My inspiration came from things I saw in movies or real life or books I read. Sometimes I finished a poem, I'd be shocked at how strongly I felt about the issues I addressed it, but nothing scared me more than when I decided to read my poems out loud before an audience. When I was in junior in high school, I discovered a small cafe called the Living Room, which held pirate which had poetry reading once or twice a month. It was right near my school, so I passed it on the bus. I was always interested in poetry readings, but I often heard the audience were tough. I didn't think I was ready for that. I thought maybe this crowd would be easier to handle. So I went into the living room one day after school and asked about the reading. I was kind of nervous, but what did I have to lose by asking? They told me to call ahead of time to reserve a place on the list. When the day came, I called and reserved my spot. I could remember my number, 12. Being the shy person I am, I couldn't believe I was doing this. But there was no turning back now. I wound up going alone because nobody was free to go with me. The reading was at 8. I arrived and sat down. The room is small and narrow, but the place was packed for some strange reason. I hadn't become nervous, but I was feeling a little jittery. Maybe it was because I was the only black person in the room, or maybe it was because everything in the room was slightly older than me. But I wasn't going to let the way and everyone was staring and whispered to get to me. I was there to enjoy myself, read my poetry, and have a good time. As I looked around, I was sort of surprised at how the place looked. The coffee felt like someone's living room, with antique chairs and tables and bookcases with a lot of books and magazines. With a lot of books and magazines, they serve every kind of gourmet coffee you could think of, and even the way they serve it, it was cool. Instead of drinking from the instead of drinking from cups, you drinks from bowls. But I just but I had but I just had a hot chocolate. I had planned to read 3 poems, but after seeing how many people had shown up, I thought maybe I should just read two, a love poem and a poem about being lonely. As the night progressed, I found myself feeling more relaxed and comfortable. The poem people read were really good. Some were funny, like the one of a man read about looking into the toilet bowl, and some were sad, like the one a woman read about losing her sister to a disease. Some made you feel sorry for the person, like the one like the one about staying with a man who is cheating on you. Some were just too long, like the poem a gay man reading about being with his lover, which was 4 or 5 pages long. But all in all, I was enjoying myself and nothing was going wrong. I was anticipating my turn. The crowd was nothing like thought it would be. They were pretty supportive. I didn't have a care in the world until I heard them call my name. Now it was time to get nervous. My palms were sweaty and I actually started shaking. But I couldn't back out now. So I walked away from the corner. I've been hiding all night and got ready. I've been hiding all night and got ready for my big moment. I walked up to the front of the room and went to the mic. The the guy had to adjust it for me since I'm short. And when I pulled the mic from the stand, I hit myself in the mouth with it. I tried to cover my clumsiness by cracking a joke. I said, "Don't you wish these things came in sizes?" It was corny, but the crowd burst out laughing, which relaxed me. I smiled back and everyone said, "Hi, my name is Sanquika, Saniqua, and hi, my name's Saniqua, and I like to read everything a couple of poems. I like to read everyone a couple of poems. Is that cool with you?" Let's see. The crowd said, "Yeah." I began to read. I began to read. I One poem I read was called "In My Heart You Shall Forever Remain," about two lovers having to leave each other. The next the next was called "A Cried in the Night," about a young girl being physically abused. As I read, I felt nervousness gradually fading. I continued to read with no worries whatsoever. When I finished, the crowd applauded. I was so happy. Well, the crowd applauded. I was so happy I'd done such a good job. I'd done such a good job. People came to compliment me. I felt so good I decided to continue during the readings. Eventually, I moved on to another. Eventually, I moved on to other places. I now perform at the Moon Cafe on Friday nights. The environment there is really nice. The people are open and friendly. A lot of their poems are read out or read. A lot of their poems are read out in rap style, or they're very common. A lot of them deal with having to go back to the African motherland. There are a lot of black people there, but sometimes there's a mixed audience. There are paintings and sketches on the walls that you can buy, and instead of clapping when a performance is done, you snap your fingers. I liked it a lot, and now I've performed that perform before. I no longer get nervous in front of the crowds. I'm far more relaxed, and I take it all in stride. A lot of people don't share their talents. They keep them bottled up because they feel they aren't any good. I know how they feel because that's how I feel about my writing and my poem. But I finally decided it was time I came out of my shell and showed everyone what I'm made of. Performing in front of an audience is as important to me as a writing poem. There's nothing like hearing people applaud, applaud, and applaud, and seeing them give you a standing ovation. After you read something you've created is a real thrill, and I got a lot of satisfaction from it. Writing will always be my first love, and I will continue to write so I can get even better. I dreamed of winning Pul- a Pulitzer Prize or becoming a best-selling author. I love to be able to say that I've become everything I aspire to be. I haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, gotta start. Yeah, gotta wait, but yeah, gotta start somewhere. Saniqua Sackwell was 16 when she wrote this story. She now attends college in New York City. Do you have a talent or skill that you like to share with others but haven't yet? What has kept you from sharing it? What would help you share it? Do you have a talent or skill that you haven't really worked on or developed? What steps can you take? What steps could you take to develop this talent or skill? So I'll give you time to think on this question. So let's go to the next page. Now I graduated. I remember my first day in high school. I was scared and nervous, walking back and forth looking for classrooms. So confused I really wanted to cry. I think a lot of kids going through that on their first day. It was hard at first keeping up with the classes and the teachers, especially in math. I always fell asleep in math because it was boring and I hated it. Other times I didn't care. I used to put myself down all the time. I thought I was never going to make it. Thinking like that made me say to myself, why bother? It took me a while to realize that this was my future I'm messing with. If other people could do it, so could I. I started to think if other people could do it, so could I. I started to think of something someone once told me, never say never until you try. From there, I decided to make a change. I started studying every test and going over my math. When I finally made some progress in math, everything started to go well for me. I started doing my homework for every class. I knew the teachers I knew the teachers were tired of hearing I left my homework on the kitchen table by mistake because I was rushing for school. So the teachers were simply asking me to do my homework and classwork. That's not a hard thing to do, right? I was just lazy. It was hard to stop being lazy and going to math class at 8:30 in the morning. Wasn't my style. I would say to myself, this week I'm gonna cut this class and that class. Next week I'll start going to all my classes. Finally, I made up my mind to stop cutting classes. That was my main problem was laziness. But I knew I didn't want to get left back. But I knew I didn't want to get left back. I didn't want to disappoint my foster parents because they believed I was gonna make it. That would that would have hurt me very much to let them and anybody else down. Most of all, I wouldn't be proud of myself. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself for not trying hard enough. My other problems were not being able to concentrate in school. I couldn't stop thinking about problems I had in foster care. I couldn't couldn't stop worrying about what was going to happen to me. Whether I be dead or alive by the age of 20. Whether whether I made it whether I made it to see tomorrow, but after a while I realized I had to work hard. Every time I got my report card, I knew I had to be more serious in order to reach my goal in life. To have a good future, you need a high school diploma and a college degree. Because my hard work, I made it to 10th grade. By then, I knew everybody, every teacher, and every kid in the school. But I had gone back to cutting classes, all the cutting classes, although I didn't do it as often as I used to. I would only cut a class I didn't feel like going to. I didn't get back into a habit of cutting classes every day because I would have regretted it later on. When I started 11th grade, I was doing what I had to do. But in the 12th grade, I started to panic. I was afraid I wasn't going to make it. I couldn't concentrate in school again. I think about the past, about all the things I've gone through. A lot was on my mind. That's when I started to believe what my father used to say that I would never graduate because you're nothing. Those were thoughts on my mind 14, 24/7. I couldn't stop worrying. I realized I needed to concentrate more. When I saw my first report card from my senior year, I was disappointed with myself for thinking about other things instead of school. I wanted to I wanted to do well and graduate to to prove my dad wrong. So I decided to go to night school and work extra hard. My foster parents stood by my side and got me a tutor to help me with my math 3 days a week. I also had tutoring in school 2 days a week. Boy, I started to get tired of it, but I kept going because I knew it was for the best. The hardest thing for me about going to school and being in foster care was when my friends would talk about their families and how cool they were. That made me jealous because that's not the family I have. My friends would go on and on about it. Man, that used to make me so sick. It's like they would continue. They would continue on about their families just to torture me. Only few of my friends knew I was in foster care. Hearing my friends talk about these things used to make me angry and depressed. A lot of times in class, I would be in another world, thinking about unhappy I was with myself. and my house. Even though at least I wasn't living on the streets, and I thank God for that. It's just that I wasn't happy in my foster home. So going to school was much better than being in my house. When school was over, it was it was time for me to go home. I would get very depressed. School was like any school was more like my real home because everybody there cared about how I was doing. When I needed someone to talk with, the teachers were always there to listen and give me advice. The teachers cared about others too, but I got the most attention. I think the reason my teachers were always there for me was because they knew my situation was and were trying to help me. I think that was sweet of them. They want me to succeed. After school, my social studies teacher would give me extra help. If I missed a day, I would get in trouble. That showed me she cared a lot about my education. When she told me I passed everything, including reading tests, and that I was graduating, I was so happy. I was so very happy. When God by my side, He made it happen. He made it happen for me. On the day of my graduation, my foster family was there cheering for me. They were proud of me. I was proud of myself. I was proud of myself. I made it. The day after I graduated, I finally called my dad. I never kept in contact with him. When I told him I got my diploma, he cried. He wasn't expecting it. He thought I was a loser. He was expecting my sister, Ingrid, to graduate, but instead, my sister turned out to be the dropout. I'm angry with my sister because she gave up and stopped trying. But that doesn't mean I still don't love her. She's my big sister, and she's in my heart. She's a very big part of me. Here's my advice to others. Never think any less of yourself because you're in foster care. Never feel you're not going to make it because that's not true. If you work hard, everything will be okay. Just take it one day at a time. You have the power to make things happen for yourself. So it says Angie Baptiste was nice was 19 when she wrote this story. So what keeps you from succeeding? Do negative thoughts about yourself ever hold you back from doing what you needed to do? Do negative thoughts about yourself ever hold you back from doing what you needed to do? What can you do to change those negative thoughts? Think of a time you succeeded at something despite negative thoughts or other problems. What helped you to succeed? So let's let's come back to this question. So let's see. So creativity. So this is the end of our. So this is end of part 2. So tomorrow I'll read the next 2. So enjoy. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I will teach you never to go into the world that they living in now. So be the best person that you are. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you guys for watching.